stipulations in the enforcement process with the DNR and the county is that that vegetated buffer needs to go in on each side of it. So we are basically reacting to that.
Who's going to reimburse the Lynn family for lost revenue? Obviously, he didn't dig the ditch.
Let me, I can address that. I can address a couple other things too. This
Rich, make sure you introduce yourself.
Would you like
I'm
this,
the
Rich?
town attorney.
Rich, grab the mic.
Mike him up.
Hold on.
This started out as an agricultural project by Supervisor Woods. He went to the NRCS, which is the old Soil Conservation Service. Now it's called the NRCS. It was for agricultural purposes. It was to eliminate erosion and probably for some drainage. Now, when the interceptor went in, Feker, the contractor, left some siltation in there. It was flagged by the town of Greenville for leaving some siltation in there. They did, as I understand, remove some of it, but they didn't remove all of it. And Mr. Woods came to the town and said he had a plan that was approved by the NRCS. He had permission or approval of that plan from the NRCS. And the town said, we will contribute to part of that stream cleaning out to get rid of the silt that still remained from Feker construction in the construction of the sewer interceptor. We had no cross sections. We actually had no plan from Mr. Woods. We had no management overseeing responsibility. It was an informal agreement that we would contribute some of the cost because some of that silt was caused by Feker construction. We also had an easement from the Linns for that sanitary sewer interceptor, and in that easement we were obligated to restore the property in the condition it was prior to the construction of the sewer interceptor. So we felt we had not only a legal obligation but also a moral obligation to make sure that that stream and the siltation that was left by Feker had been removed. I think the town was quite surprised and shocked, as much as some other people, about the extent of what the project was as far as the depth and the width and whatnot. But essentially that's how town involvement got involved. Now, the Linns are not in favor of a 100-foot easement, and we talked to you by telephone from that meeting we had with Mr. Lynn. And how that comes out, I'm not exactly sure. I know the county and DNR want a buffer. How wide that buffer eventually comes or becomes, obviously Mr. Lynn will have a say in what kind of plan gets finally submitted to both DNR and Outagamie County. It's his land, it's private property, and I think before anything is submitted, Mr. Lynn is going to have a compelling interest in the particulars and the specifics of what that buffer is, and maybe even where the stream is routed. But this still is private property.
Does that fully answer your question? Doesn't sound like it or look like it if your hand's raised again.
Well, that's fine, but if the sediment was in this ditch, that's why you get bonded with these construction companies. How come the town accepted the job on the end if there was a problem with this sediment in this ditch?
I can't answer that question. I don't have knowledge of that, but our town administrator or former town administrator might be able to answer that.
It wasn't a contract with the town. The town did not contract with Immel.
We're talking about the original sewer interceptor work.
Oh,
Excavator
original. said, I think the town did. As a matter of fact, I think Feker might have even been cited by the county or DNR that we did. And in light of the fact that there was going to be a project that was undertaken by Mr. Woods, we just said, well, fix it up for us and we'll contribute.
Mr. Nagy?
That is one of the most insightful questions that has been asked tonight. Congratulations, Mr. Rice. When you're under contract to install a very costly sewer line, I can't imagine how much that was, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's finished, but because of seasonal mending of the soil, next spring you find that there's some kind of problem. You have a very specific task of going back to the contractor and having a dialogue and exercising a claim against the bond or whatever the legalities are, and not waving it away as something that, oh, it doesn't matter because one of our insiders, Mr. Woods, is going to want to control the wetland, and he said he would take care of it, all without any agreements of a written formal nature. This is almost tragic or laughable, depending on how you look at it.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Any other questions? Ms. Gofford?
I just have, I think people are probably getting kind of tired and ready to end this, but, so I just have one little thing to say. We all live here, we have our piece of property, we like it here, people like it because of the ruralness, which includes seeing farmland. And we know that housing developments all cost us as citizens money, costs us more money, and farmland saves us money. So why don't we put that money into saving farmland instead of letting people develop and letting the landowner have a program where they get paid substantially for their property and have more openness and keep what we have. And we all live here, we like it here, we like it this way. And so landowners can get what the value could have been, have a program and work on that so that we can eliminate all this runoff that we have, because this was caused by subdivision of road.
Okay.
Correct. So,
Thanks for your comments. Any last question? Not seeing any. So we're going to move forward with this. I want to thank Nick for presenting our plan that we have waiting for the DNR approval. Once that approval is granted, then we can begin our permitting process. So this is not something that's going to turn around tomorrow, as Nick stated. Earliest would be June of next year, it's looking like, based on the permitting schedule as well as when we're allowed to do any construction in that area. So there's some time that we need to wait before we'll know what the costs are and before we can start moving forward with any parts of that. So Nick, thank you for your presentation, as well as the gentleman from Sand Creek that were here previously. Definitely was education for many of us. As Joel said, we are trying very much to have open communication as far as what's going on with this. We know it's been a very contentious issue, and just want to make sure that we're progressing forward and not taking steps backwards, and working hand in hand, step by step with the DNR, the Army Corps of Engineers, Allegheny County, to make sure this is done the right way. So thanks all that were in attendance for this. We're going to move forward with our town board meeting. So I invite the town board members to come back up front, and we'll get started with the next agenda item. I don't think so. Oh, thanks for your time and comments.
I totally missed you.
Sure. We'll find out. Thank you.
Yeah.
For those that are departing, just make sure you keep your volume of your voice down or step outside because it does carry into this room. Everybody's welcome to stay. Obviously, we've got several other agenda items that are very informative and moving us forward as a township. So we're going to go into public comment forum. I think everybody except for the Hess family was able to speak, and while the presentation was going on, they asked to wait until their portion of the agenda item for their time to speak. So is there anybody else wishing to speak public comment forum? Mr. Nagy, just keep it to 2 minutes or less, please.
Thank you very much. I actually have a letter, and so I'm not going to belabor any points. We've had a lot of discussion here. I'm sure that all of us would admit to having found ourselves in situations where later on we thought, oh shoot, what was I thinking? In such situations, the hard but ultimately the best thing to do is to admit the mistake and to make amends. Delaying this kind of action can result in the further hiding of facts, rationalizing, deal-making with ourselves and others, and going deeper and deeper into the quagmire of being on the wrong path. I believe solidly that this is where we find ourselves here today. Should we really be throwing good money after bad, conducting a multi-$1,000 study on whether or not there's a karst feature when the referral by the DNR to the Justice Department mentions several issues that are in violation, but none of them talk about a karst? Or should our town chairman and Supervisor Woods go into closed-door meetings in February only to have town chairman announce in the summer newsletter 5-6 months later? Don't worry, all the expenses of mitigation are going to be paid for by the sanitary sewer district, as if those were not legitimate tax dollars of present and future residents. We could go on citing many facts. The matter is almost laughable if it were not tragic. I will leave with just a couple of thoughts. If the combined brain trust of our town chairman, supervisors, minus Mr. Woods, town administrator, and town's attorney can't figure out how to initiate legal action against an individual who used his insider's influence to perpetrate losses to the town already well on the way to $100,000 with no end in sight, then the town needs better legal advice. And finally, if the same brain trust thinks that a reasonable way to handle this matter is for the town to fix first and pay for all the concerns and then negotiate where the responsibility lies, we may need a whole town hall full of new talent. Let's make this a part of the meeting like this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve, for your comments. Just to respond to a few of those, the costs that have been incurred this far are part of the enforcement process that have been put on the town by the DNR. So we were required to do the erosion control that was done in the spring. Had we not, we were facing up to $10,000 fines per day, which would put us well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars by now. So that's why we've gone forward with approving any of the expenditures on this so far. You referenced some meetings. There were no closed meetings between Supervisor Woods and myself or Supervisor Woods and the rest of the town staff in regards to this nature in February until we were notified that there was a project done without proper permitting. And then we had discussions. So there was no discussions. Even though they may have been requested, it does not mean that they happened.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm just going by some of the 400 plus emails.
I understand.
Supervisor Woods,
So I just wanted to provide that clarification for you and for others, because I know that there was information that was provided earlier last week. And then as far as the cost of this being part of the sanitary district and not as the full township, this was a sanitary district project. And as such, there's an account that is, and Joel, you can help me out with some of this best practices. there's an account that's separate from our other accounts that is for sanitary district projects.
Been in Greenville 48 years, and I'm aware.
Okay, so I don't need to go through more clarification on that, so thank you, thank you.
The entire sanitary sewer is on the south side of the stream of the entire path of excavation.
Thank you, Mr. Nagy. I appreciate it. It is a sanitary district project. So that's how we've entered into it.
More discussion about that.
There potentially could be. We have to find out where any litigation goes, so I appreciate that. Sure. Go ahead, Rich, but keep it brief, please, so we can move forward.
We were ordered by Allegheny County and DNR to restore a karst. There is no karst. We have been dogged by Allegheny County for 5 years before this stream bed issue ever arose. Allegheny County held up that Towering Pine subdivision for a year and a half. And the basis of holding it up was a purported, because it was going to affect the karst and contaminate groundwater. This thing has been around for 5 years. It was important for the town to do a study of whether or not a karst was there. Obviously, it was important for the town because we have been ordered to restore something that isn't there. And we would be dogged forever, or for a long time, about any development or anything we did on this erroneously assumed karst. This was money well spent, not only with respect to the order that we are facing to restore, but also in the longer term. It was important that this thing gets squared away, whether there was a karst or whether there wasn't a karst.
All right, I'm going to move forward. Is there any other public comments? Jean, anything different than what you've asked or before? Any comments you've had before?
Yes, I put my copies on the sheet.
Okay, please come forward. I see it's about the South Greenville Grange.
Correct.
Very good, thank you.
Gee, doubt me.
I don't doubt you.
Several weeks ago, the South Greenville Grange, 11 of us traveled down to Madison, and we received our certificate to be on the State Register of Historic Places. And we are the 3rd place in Greenville to receive this designation. You go in front of a board, we had a person assigned to us to do the written work. She presents the project, they ask us questions, and at the end, one of the gentlemen on the board said that he thought that was, in all of his years hearing stories of historic buildings, he thought ours was one of the most memorable, touching stories he has ever heard. And it was a good presentation that was put together. So we're going to have an open house the last Saturday in October, which is close to the Grange's birthday. Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4. Please come and see what the Grange looks like inside. We hope to have all the stations. There were actually 13 offices in the Grange. We're going to have them set up in the stations how they used to set up, and give tours, give whatever you want to see. Come and see the building, and be thankful we have some historic place in Greenville. So another one added to the list.
Jean, just 1 second. On behalf, for myself individually, and hope I can speak for the rest of the board, I just want to congratulate you on that. Definitely getting awarded that is not something that was easy for any one person. I know there was a team of people that are part of this. Congratulate and thank you for all your hard work on that, as well as all those that were involved, and anyone that's been involved as a member of the Grange in the past, or has a family member or a friend that's been involved. It's wonderful news. Thank you very much. Any other public comment forum? John?
I had signed up also, but I would only want to remark to Rich's remark. I do not believe when people give a presentation saying there's no cars, the following speaker so he has not put anything to bed. And then, one thing that I question, in terms of Mr. Woods and the street, I doubt some of those things would have been in Mike's interest. And Mike would have done things for agricultural purposes. I don't know that some of this was done for agricultural purposes, and connecting the back end to a navigable stream, I question that. And I look at the performance of people in town government over the years, and who was capable of deception, who misled people, who modified the minutes, who did a whole lot of things. And if Dan Garber is here tonight yet, he can attest to those things when he was a supervisor in this town. And I'll bet there's more culpability than Mike. So we're all out there ready to hang Mike out to dry. I don't know that that's quite appropriate. And I know because of potential litigation that maybe people can't speak. But I do have some empathy for Mike and for him.
Thanks, John. Actually, you brought something forward, two things actually that I wanted to say. As part of this, you are one of the few individuals that has reached out to me specifically to have a conversation on this, and I appreciate that. I think our conversation we had several months ago was a good one, and it brought some good light on where we are going from a town staff to you. So I appreciate you doing that, and I'd like to invite any others to continue to do that, as many have through email, although phone conversations are usually much more effective because you get tone of voice and other inflections that you might want to get there. But so please do that. And Mr. Nagy, you did bring up one point during your comments about why the town board hasn't acted in a legal way against Mr. Woods. There is no legal way that we can do a removal of an elected official. So that is why we have not moved forward. So thank you, Steve. I'm not looking for comment. I just wanted to let you know why we haven't. All right, so thank you, Steve. We're going to move forward. Steve, we're going to move forward. So, public comment forum is still open. I'm looking for us to close out the public comment forum with a motion. Pardon? Hesses are going to come up later, Andy, during their agenda item that they will be approving. So, I'm looking for a motion to close the public comment forum. That's okay, Steve. Don't worry about it. Me too, so thank you. Looking for a motion from the board to close the public comment forum.
Second.
Motion's been made with a second. All in favor to close the public comment forum, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Public comment forum section is closed. I'm going to go through the consent agenda and the items in there to make sure that there's nothing that needs to be removed because we have the Hess family here wishing to speak. We have the town board meeting minutes from August 14th. The meeting minutes from, that was a closed session. And then also the town board meeting minutes from August 14th, the open session. Joint town board fire department meeting minutes from August 21st. The town board meeting minutes from the 28th. A closed session of the town board meeting minutes on the 28th. Approval of the September 2017 town vouchers, a temporary Class B beer wine license application for St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception to be September 16th at Lions Park. A review and possible approval of a Class B beer wine license for the Greenville Lions Club. This is also at Lions Park on October 1st. Appointment of Tim James to Urban Forestry Board. Approval of Resolution 11-17, Outagamie County Hazard Mitigation Plan, and also approval 2017 agreement for enhanced law enforcement services. I do not see the Hess family one in here, which I believe comes further in our agenda. So I'm not asking for anything to be removed. Is anybody else?
Item 5C, just revision on it. It's listed me as being present for that meeting, and I was not.
Okay. So make sure that that gets amended. Other than the amendment to 5C, is there any other removals? Not hearing any, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second that. Any questions or comments beyond? Not hearing any, we'll go forward with a vote. All in favor to approve the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Consent agenda is approved. Item 6 is not necessary as nothing was removed. There's simply an amendment. Officers report. Our liaison officer has stuck it out with us. So I welcome you to the front to give your report.
Quite interesting.
All right, you want me to go ahead and introduce myself, sir?
Sure, and you might need to speak in the microphone.
Okay,
So
cool. Here
feel
it
free
is.
to
All
use the
right,
podium.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I really don't like podiums and stuff, but I'm gonna do my best here.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me? Okay?
Yep.
All right. My name is Wong Lee. I'm here tonight to represent the Outagamie County Sheriff's Department. Normally, I don't do this. Our liaison is actually not available tonight. And of course, the deputy assigned to the Greenville area, Deputy Corey Van Berkel, is not available tonight. So we drew straws, and I got the short one. So I apologize. I have what's typed up on the sheet for me. Any questions that I cannot answer, I will get the answer to you. I'll get your name, your phone number, and I can get that to you at a later time. Okay? The board, do you have a copy of this from Sergeant Nate Borman? Okay. So I'm giving a report. This is for August of 2017. This is the work that the Sheriff's Department has done for the town of Greenville. Deputy Van Berkel handled 10.9 calls per 4-hour shift is what's listed on here. Now, she's part-time here. All other officers handled 2.7 calls per 4-hour block during non-contract hours. And of course, during the month of August, there were a total of 616 calls for service in the town of Greenville. The top 3 or 4, the very top is traffic safety incidents. This is times officers checked out to run radar or monitor traffic, traffic direction. Number 2 on the list here is traffic stops, pulling people over for speeding. Number 3 is 911 calls, emergency calls for service from the residents. And number 4 is automobile accidents in the town of Greenville. Now it goes into alarms, animal calls, medical calls, motorist assist, suspicious incidents, and other miscellaneous items such as warrants for arrests and stuff like that, which remains very low yet. So the town of Greenville is a wonderful, wonderful place to live. You folks are very lucky. On August 29th, Deputy Van Berkel responded for a suspicious vehicle on Skyline Drive. Apparently a white van in the area was seen taking pictures of a home or vehicle. Deputy Van Berkel tried to locate the vehicle that night and was unsuccessful. Later follow-up revealed one of the men in the van is a local resident. He was less than cooperative and could not provide a clear explanation of his behavior. Further follow-up is pending on the matter, and all deputies have been alerted to his identity and address, so they're monitoring his activities. On top of that, Sergeant Sean O'Ligney, he's another detective with the Sheriff's Department. We have 7. Him and I have been working a burglary ring that happened in the town of Greenville over on Julius Drive, North Road, down towards 76 to Spencer Road there, and then on into Winnebago County. We've developed a suspect. This individual is now revoked on his probation and parole. He's back in prison. We have some really good evidence to implicate him for these multiple burglaries. Now, it spans from Greenville to Oshkosh over to the Freedom area. He's a recovering heroin addict, and that contributed to some of his decision-making. And because he hasn't been formally charged yet, I can't release his name, but I can let you folks know that we have identified a suspect for those burglary rings. So that would be my report, folks, and ladies and gentlemen of the board. Any questions at all?
No, I do appreciate you sticking out. I don't have any questions. Anybody else on the board? Thank you for sticking it out through that educational experience for you as well as many
No
of us.
problem. I'll take that to the city of Kaukauna. That's where I live. So
All right.
our water's really bad.
As much light as I'm making on the topic, I do really appreciate the turnout tonight and everybody's candid behavior and questions. They are very valuable, and we do intend very much to stay with open communication on that topic as well as all others. And that's going to move us forward to 7B, the fire department, first responders. Chief, do you have anything to point out from your report?
Nothing special, just that, budget time's right around the corner, so most of my time is focused on, budget.
Okay. Any questions for fire department, the fireman's report? Fire department report? And Mr. Evers, you're here for the first responders? You've- Other than your new recruit is now officially on board? Correct, so very good. Good, and thank you gentlemen for you and all your team's support for the community. Emergency management, I don't believe there's anything to point out from that point of view from Chris Schlechter. There was a couple of drills that were conducted in the last month and a half, so I appreciate everybody's participation in those. Public Works, Mr. Schiller? I had one, but I don't think it's necessary to ask in front of everybody, so when I remember it, I'll send you a note. My tablet died, so I can't see everything that's in there. So, Parks and Recreation, Urban Forestry. Hold on, I'm seeing a hand back here. Nope. What you're waving your hand for is not on that topic. So. Still coming up. These are just their reports of their work that they've been conducting and what's coming forward. So thank you though. Make sure to wave your hand again if I'm close to missing. Parks and Recreation, Urban Forestry, Tony. Okay. Very good. Is there any questions for these gentlemen? Make sure you ask. Constable report. The only question I have is you have a found rabbit on your report? Oh, I was going to ask domestic, right? Good, because I have a whole bunch of neighbors with gardens that would have you all over the place. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Very good. Director of Community and Economic Development, Mr. Tebow. Very good. And nothing from the board, so that takes us to our town administrator report. Joel, anything you'd like to highlight?
Just real quickly, been in lots of meetings over the last month, as you can tell. Through my report, it's basically back-to-back meetings, so I appreciate everyone on staff and on board for meeting with me and members of the public. Just a couple things, I did attend a FEMA Basic Public Information Officer course and am certified as a Basic Public Information Officer for emergency management purposes, so you could throw me in front of the microphone and make me owe you ice cream if I show up on camera. That's kind of a rule that happens with that. And then the other item I kind of want to mention, we are still working on our town website. I think we're getting pretty close to completion and getting that ready for launch. All the departments are racing to the finish here this week, and hopefully we'll get that launched sometime in the next week or so.
Okay. And recommendation was given to you do kind of a soft opening for that for some of our people that are on committees within the town commissions. Let them get a first-hand look at it and also give us some feedback. Any typos, grammar, and beyond. I know that there was also a recommendation to have somebody that's a teacher to look at that from an English standpoint to make sure that we're using everything correctly. So Joel, I know you're working forward on that with the nod of your head that I'm seeing. That takes us 9A, Park Commission. Greg, anything important to point out? So I know that the meeting was held down at Community Park this last month, the end of August. There was a lot of information that was shared about some drainage concerns there. So those are going to be looked at, and their stormwater superintendent, Chris Pagels, has already been looking at some things that were spoken of at that meeting. So that is all in your meeting minutes that will be coming once they're approved. So thank you. Any questions from the board? Sports Complex Committee, Tony, anything? You're waiting for engineering? Yeah. And going forward to trying to identify the correct group? Yeah, nothing new on that. Okay. Facility Committee, Mr. Peters?
No new report.
So from a Facility Committee standpoint, we are waiting for, right now, just 5 bugles, correct?
Yes, sir.
And once 5 bugles is ready with a presentation for the town board and the Facility Committee, we'll be meeting again. Okay. Just want to make sure that that was still the standing order with that. That takes us to, would be 9A, new business, Planning Commission recommendations. So this is for, the first item there is special exception use permit application to allow construction of storage buildings in an agricultural zone district. The recommendation was for denial based upon the location on a major thoroughfare and concern with the amount of sites that are already in place in the town of Greenville. So the planning commission are the ones that gave that recommendation for denial. I believe. Joel, do you have anything to add to that?
So that basically surmises that. In your packet is the staff report that was prepared for the plan commission that identifies the request for special use. As Chairperson Anderson had indicated, the plan commission did review this particular item. A public hearing was held at the plan commission for this particular request. The plan commission did deny it, primarily based on the premise that there are the volume of existing self-storage units, in particular within the Gateway overlay district, was high, and that was the reason for denial. In addition, I think there was some consideration that there are other available commercial properties in the town that would allow that as a permitted use without special use exception. And so there are available properties in the town where this would be more compatible.
Okay. Are you looking for us to go forward with a vote on this tonight of any time? I don't see that.
Correct, yes. So the town board, because the plan commission is basically providing a recommendation
Mhm.
to you, the town board should take action.
Okay.
A motion to approve or deny is in order.
Okay. There can be questions and comments afterwards, but Evan participated in the planning commission discussion on this. I would make the motion to deny the special exception use permit.
Second.
A second's been given by Mark. Is there any other questions or comments on this topic?
I just got one. Do we know how many current sites we have?
That was presented at the planning commission meeting. It was 800 plus sites in the town of Greenville for storage. I'm just going from memory.
Units?
Of units? How does that compare with other communities? Do we never check? I don't know the answer to that. And what is? I just question, what else do you want on that piece of property? I look at this and I kinda like the way it looks. I see an eyesore out there now that's these are nice looking storage units.
I can't speak for the whole planning commission, but it was looking for other types of businesses to be there. Right.
I don't believe that it should, the storage unit should be in our main thoroughfares. I mean, there's other sites in town that aren't in our main thoroughfare district. I don't want people driving into town of Greenville and the first things they're looking at are storage units all over the place along our main highways. That just leaves a bad taste in me.
And we could have a business here with cars all over and.
Now, there's a lot of things that could go in that probably shouldn't go in.
And that's why we have the planning commission to
Yep.
go through and look at those and review those. I'll allow you to speak, Mr. Ziegert.
When was this meeting set up? Because I know a couple of people that live next door to where this site is, and they said they never got any information whatsoever on when this meeting was gonna be, what was gonna happen with it. They said people had told them there was letters going out, and there was pictures, and nobody got it.
I believe the meeting was August 28th, Monday, August 28th at 5:30 PM. Now, why there was not notification to proper neighbors, I can't explain that. I'd leave that to town staff, but whether it was an oversight or if they lived outside the boundaries of what is the requirement.
We actually have two levels of information that we send out. We have the citizen participation letter, which went out to people within 500 feet. And then we did actually get a letter from the neighbor saying he was not in favor. So we know that neighbors did get letters. This one might have been just outside the 500 feet possibly.
Well, this neighbor I'm talking about lives right next door
Right.
to the 10 acres lot.
Mr. Ziegert, I'll actually ask our town administrator, Mr. Greg Zeski, to look into why this might have been an oversight to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So hopefully this is direction that they were intending for this to go, and without their voice being heard.
One of the comments there is that we talked about it after this last plan commission meeting, just ensuring that the mailing list that was used in notification of the residents is provided as part of the packet. So if there is a question, we can provide basically a map of the geographic area that was used, whether it's 300 feet or 500 feet, and then also a list of the individuals that were sent letters to.
Okay, that would be a wonderful
That at
addition.
least shows you that we attempted to make contact with them, whether or not they received the letter. Certainly we can't guarantee delivery from the Postal Service, but at least we would have an idea who we sent to and what the geographic area was.
Does that help? We're going to definitely look into it, and we're adding the list of people that letters were addressed to, as well as a map.
Yeah, why don't they inform me who they sent all these letters to?
Okay. I appreciate your concern, and if you're looking for from that particular
From that,
agenda item from the planning commission meeting, who were letters sent to?
yeah,
Okay.
because,
I'm sure we have that.
Yep, absolutely.
who,
Our responsible staff person will make sure that they follow up with you on that.
okay.
Thank you. So a motion's been made with a second. Questions or comments beyond? Not hearing any, let's go forward with a vote. The motion was made to deny the special exception use permit application. All in favor to deny should state so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
That's a 3-to-1 vote. Motion carries. Special exception use permit is denied. 9B, recommendation to county for shoreland conditional use permit for the Rice property, N1594 North Road. Is there any questions on this, or is somebody prepared to make a motion from the board?
I'll move to approve the permit.
I'll give a second on that. Any questions or comments?
All the permits that are required by us are in?
Actually, in Allegheny, I recommend, well, you,
In this particular case, what they're applying for is conditional use permit application. This conditional use application would be required before we could issue permit. So it's kind of a somewhat a convoluted process, but as an unincorporated township, individuals that are working within that shoreland overlay district are required to get a conditional use permit if they're going to do these types of activities. The county requires the township to provide consent to the application of conditional use. Then once that's issued, they would have to theoretically come back here, get a stormwater permit, erosion control permit from the town. So at this point, you're approving conceptually the project that's being proposed, and you're making a recommendation to the Outagamie County Zoning Committee.
So that's the important part. We're making a recommendation to the county zoning, and then after that, we can go through with the permitting. So motion's been made to approve, and second's been given. Any other questions or comments? Not hearing any, let's go forward with our vote. All in favor to recommend to county for shoreline conditional use permit for the Rice property at N1594 North Road. All in favor of this, please state so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 9B is approved. 9C, approval of Lions Park Quadrant 2 concept plan. This was discussed at the Park Commission, and the recommendation was to go forward with that plan. There's a lot of discussion about green space usage as well as future plans. The skate park would be potentially moved there as well from its current location, which is the cul-de-sac at the end of Spring Road. I'll make a motion to approve, looking for a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Not hearing any, let's go forward with our vote. This is for approval of Lions Park Quadrant 2 concept plan. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 9C is approved. 9D, this is the Green Ridge Drive median recommendation that we have some people wishing to speak on. So why don't you come forward, and if you would like to speak on that, and state your comments, and then we'll have a motion and questions and comments after. So just remember, name and address is needed.
Rachel and Mark, W689 Green Ridge Drive.
Okay.
Go ahead.
First, I wanna, what kind of medium are you gonna put in, if you ever would put one in?
Yeah, please.
Because you told us
Yeah.
you were gonna deny this, so.
Okay. So in front of the town board, I made a recommendation to the board regarding the median. The Hess family would like a binding statement that would state that the town would never put a median in front of their property.
No,
And-
it's side, get it right.
Okay, along the adjacent of their property on Greenwich Drive. Okay. Now, I gave a few, so right now, there's no median design for Greenwich Drive. But as I stated in my recommendation, as traffic increases at that intersection, as new improvements may be needed down the road, there's no way that I can make a recommendation that would state that we wouldn't put a median there. I don't know what would go there because right now, we don't know what the future holds out there. But I'm not gonna make a binding statement or recommend the town board make a binding statement that a median wouldn't go there. So there's no median design there for right now. We're not sure what the future holds. The other thing is, we don't know if this would be a town project or a DOT project. Depending on what goes on, this could be town-driven, where the town would take over this whole, project of the intersection improvement. So that being stated, I can't just say, if the DOT does it or the town does it. I'm not sure who would be responsible for doing this project. So again, I would not make a recommendation to the board of never for a median. And it's just not good practice to make restrictions on design options for future road projects when you don't know what those type of projects would be. So that was my layout for the recommendation here.
Okay. Hess family, have any other comments?
Yeah, and I still have. For the median, we have if people know where we live, we have a motorhome horse trailer.
Which my mom
You-
explained to you.
You explain when they put the turning lane in. There, a median would block us from backing out our driveway with that two items.
Which my mom explained to you. And
Yes.
remember at the last meeting, I brought up that if the DOT would get involved, because the next one you guys brought up to me would be about that probably working with 76, that it would be reevaluated. Is that still an option to get a statement from you and that you guys won't put it in unless,
It would be reevaluated by you guys
Guys.
before it would be put in.
because
Well,
you said
making a
next
statement
time-
and then going back and just reevaluating it at the next time or in the future doesn't add any value. I see where you guys are coming from and needing
Because,
to have the clearance to back your recreational vehicle and horse trailer out of there.
because we go both directions,
And for
whichever
turning
one
us
is
into
easy.
into our driveway too. We would have to go way down the Fawn Ridge, come back, and then turn it into our driveway. Also, the markings on that road should be a double yellow lane that he put, yellow striper lane on the, going into the school and a double coming out. Should be a double
Dad, it's reverse.
So,
going
Dean,
into the.
can you tell us how the striping was done for that new
and
intersection that was just finished? So go
so-
ahead and finish.
Well, School Road towards the double lane,
Mhm.
and that has a turning lane. So ours should have a double lane too, so we come around the corner, someone can just drive past us on the left-hand side.
And
Okay,
I explained to Dean in the past, before they did the road construction, how drivers would not slow down when, even when our blinker was on, and how they would fly past without, because we had people hit the ditch and basically fly over the neighbor's driveway and back onto the road. And, or if on the other side, they would pass without slowing down and not see anybody coming. So, it's just a thing to think about when it comes to your guys' liability, because it falls on you guys.
Okay, so there's a couple of things here that have been put on the table. One is the striping that's done on that intersection, was just completed. So,
And
and the other would be the median.
there's about arrow markings too.
Mhm.
So so you mark one as right turn, the right
Yep.
turn lane is only as right.
Are you going to do that down the road?
I'll ask Dean to talk on that too. So thank you for your question. Anything else?
What's your guys' opinion on the median?
Well, let's let Dean cover the striping and then we'll get to the median.
Okay.
So as far as the striping, the Outagamie County Highway Department did the striping for us.
Mhm.
Now, the striping is set up so it's a passing zone as you're pulling into Greenridge Terrace going to the school, and a no passing zone as you're coming out. If somebody,
That's the way it's set up today, right?
correct, and it's also set up that same way on School Road heading to the east, so
Mhm.
it's not a,
No,
Not-
I said the west towards the Y.
That's okay.
going that direction next. So the one going to the Y, which is a double yellow, is also going up a hill, which is not clear zones for any passing.
Mhm.
That's why it's a double yellow going up. Has nothing to do with right turn or anything
What is
else.
normal best practice at an intersection like that? It seems to me like you wouldn't want passing, especially if there's a driveway there.
I will speak with, well,
So what's
the
best
thing though,
practice?
it's still illegal to pass if there's
Correct.
not clear zone. I mean, as a driver, it's still your responsibility to obey the traffic laws.
Absolutely.
If there's a dashed line for passing and a car's coming, you can't pass.
Mhm.
You know, same way if it's by a driveway or anything else. I'll speak with the county superintendent, but these guys go around and they mark up intersections throughout the whole county, and not just Outagamie County, it's Calumet, Fond du Lac, Winnebago. So this isn't the first time they've done street markings.
Okay.
The turn arrows are coming, they're ordered. We're putting, instead of paint down, we're doing an epoxy out there, heated on, so it doesn't come off in a year or 2 years. So the arrows are coming.
Okay.
Okay, which way?
So
We are installing right turn arrows.
what you're saying about,
Okay, just wait. Right turn, I get this.
I know you want to understand. Go ahead.
Intersection taken care of. The right turn arrow you just put in, okay? Are you putting a left turn?
And a straight
No,
across.
a left turn arrow in?
We are currently just putting a right turn arrow in on
Okay.
the intersection.
So, right turn only.
Correct. It's a
Okay.
right turn arrow. So if you go in that lane, it's right turn.
Okay.
So most
So
people
the
will
left
be
lane
okay.
will be going straight across and,
Two.
Correct.
you mean right turn.
We're just putting a right turn arrow in the far right lane, so if you pull in that lane with the arrow, you can only do a right turn. The lane towards the center is for straight through and left turn movement.
People are still gonna use the right turn lane to pass around sometimes. I've seen it other places.
So that this best,
Again, that's illegal. That's a traffic violation. It's, you know, if an officer sees that, they can pull them over. You know, if people do illegal things, I can't control that.
They did stuff to you.
one thing that we can do from a town to help out with that is try to put an educational feature, maybe a Facebook post about this intersection and what's changed there and why,
Yeah,
for people to learn. And then,
confused on the first day of school.
so that might be something that could benefit the community if we would do a little educational post that this intersection has had an additional right turn lane. The arrow markings will be coming soon. Please use it appropriately, those types of things.
I should have mentioned this in my report earlier, but I did get a phone call from the school bus, or head guy at the transportation division in the school. And he got feedback already from his school bus drivers and what he's visually seen, and he said it's improved the intersection greatly already, that it's helped clear things out a lot. And that's coming from the school bus drivers and the people that are there every day. So I've had positive feedback already on the intersection.
Can you go forward though with a little educational Facebook post on that?
We can, once we get with the new website going out, we can probably get something out there on that.
You can put a Facebook post out for that new website.
I
though.
probably can do it
All
too,
right.
yeah.
Mr. Chairperson, I can make sure that we do that.
All right.
That's not a problem.
Thank you, Joel. Just something, it's kind of a positive note that we're doing something to help try to improve that intersection, even if it is a smaller step than what might go
It's
forward in
just,
the future.
They still block our driveway, so that,
Just, can I wait until I have the arrows and take a picture and actually post it that way, so it's actually, you know, showing the whole educational piece at once?
Would be better.
It would be better. I understand that.
I can get pretty crafty in Photoshop.
too, yeah.
Joel's going to be out there in a yellow vest directing traffic, I think, before we're done, if we're not careful. But all right, so really what was on the agenda was a median recommendation, and the recommendation from town staff was no action on this. And although, is a motion necessary for this? I don't believe there is, since there's no action.
Yeah, no necessary motion unless you want to make something more formalized. But we're not recommending anything at this time, primarily because it doesn't limit you in your future decision-making. So whether you deny the idea of placing a median or you approve the placing of a median in the future, no action just indicates that you're going to allow future design considerations to be taken into consideration at the time of design, not today.
Okay, coming to that
So
point,
you recommend, right,
not to do it,
not to do it
yes.
at all.
So the recommendation, and no action, means that we will not be
Doing it.
going forward with a statement that we will not do this. So we're saying we're not going to declare any statement that the town won't put a median in there. That's what no action means.
And conversely, that obviously because there's no action, that we're not stating that there will be a median either. We're
Right.
going to allow future design standards to dictate
So that
the
would,
design of that.
that would, were the design in that. So if we still live there, there would be a design where there would be an opening in the medium.
You would
So
work with us with all the
we-
measurements to make sure it wouldn't interfere
We
with
would
the,
still be able to get that out.
You or whoever resides
Or
at that
whoever.
property would have
Vehicle and
ample opportunity to come in and comment on your concerns when that design, should that be a design change be necessary, you'd have ample opportunity to come in and express your comments and concerns.
bringing up that point on the design things and that. What if you redesign and like you brought up about a roundabout, Green Ridge and 76 would be a horrible spot for it. You brought that up last time. If a redesign came to about that you would do something with a roundabout and it would end up at School Road, and a medium is needed at our house just because people don't know where they're going, and that, would you redesign the road back to the original way it was then?
I can't make that declaration today. Any design changes, we'd have to look at in the future when they're proposed. So I can't tell you that things are going to be a certain way without having any plans in place.
So this,
So I don't think that we need to keep going over this, because basically what I'm trying to tell you is when a design is made in the future for any changes, it's really not going to come from the town. It's going to come from a state level, because that's a state highway that would be addressed. Now, from a town,
this is a
now hold on a second. I'm telling you that we're not going to make a statement tonight. There's no action that's going to be taken, because we can't say what the design's going to be without any proposals in front of us. So thank you.
They brought up the state and I said the state, it would be
Thank you for your time, but is anybody else contrary to taking no action on this? Okay, so that's
So
where we're
we're
at,
good-
and we're gonna move
so-
forward on our agenda. So thank you.
So we're
For
gonna
comments.
come up to the same issue as this again in the future possibly.
Possibly. So you definitely would be notified by the state if there's any changes to that intersection.
Or the town.
The
Because
town,
I-
if the
I
town is,
heard-
if the town is recommending changes to that, you,
I heard about the road word of mouth
We didn't even get notified by Dean before
Yeah.
this got started.
started.
so that's definitely, we've already talked about some of the oversights that have happened and what changes we're making for that. So I appreciate your concerns, and we're gonna move forward on the agenda.
So we're just coming to the same problem next time. Thanks.
9E, approval of non-standard warning sign policy. Dean, I think we need just a little explanation for the group that's here on what you mean by non-standard warning sign
Right.
policy.
So, occasionally I'll get a request for a non-standard warning sign. A type of non-standard warning sign would be blind child, deaf child area. It could be autistic, or it could be a lot of different things. They're in your manual uniform of traffic control. They have a list of standard caution signs that are used out for the traveling public. Typically, when you start putting up non-standard signs, when you're putting them up, the caution isn't there all the time. So what happens is the travelers going by, the sign just becomes another sign. They don't really notice it out there. It just kind of becomes like sign pollution. So I guess to try to get ahead of this before we start getting a lot of requests or things like that, I guess I looked at, since we didn't have a written policy, to actually put a written policy in place. So I kind of looked at what other communities have done. A lot of other communities have got a similar policy in place. And just to kind of summarize what the whole thing is here, there's really no overall conclusion that there's proof that, like a deaf child area sign will slow traffic down anymore or change motorist behavior. So by putting these signs out there, the town, you're not changing the motorist behavior at all, so you're really spending money where you don't need to. So that was another reason why to have a policy in place. It also gives a false sense of security for people. You put up this sign and you feel like, okay, your child is safe out in the road. Well, that's not really the case. It's kind of just the opposite. It's giving you that false sense of security.
So what you've given to us for approval is best practice that you found in other communities as well?
Correct, and also the state of Wisconsin also, if you go to
I saw that.
the second page, the state of Wisconsin also has something similar. So this kind of just puts us in line with some of our neighboring communities and with the state of Wisconsin.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the non-standard warning sign
Just
policy.
before you do that, I do want to let you know that I have been working with an individual